Hello, everyone! Happy New Year! Oh, there's Glenn saying Happy New Year, indeed. And hello, Marie and Glenn. How was your holiday break?
'Twas good. 'Twas good. Nice and restful.
Nice. Glad to hear that. How about you, Glenn?
I was lazy.
You were lazy.
I got books and I read books.
Nice.
So that was nice. And wrestled with my children and all the good things.
Awesome.
I did some sewing.
Ooh, what did you end up sewing?
I actually just yesterday finished the mock-up of my wedding dress.
Oh, that's amazing.
Very excited about that.
That is so cool. You're designing your own wedding dress.
Yes.
Now, does it have a historic flair to
Oh,
it?
yes.
Now,
yes.
of course, you're going to do like Marie Antoinette style, just gigantic hoop skirts and everything.
I don't think I'm going to fit down the aisle of the church if I do that. So probably not that much.
And you don't want to lose your head on your wedding day.
I really don't want to. Really would prefer to get married rather than executed. So
Yeah.
And there's a lot of wedding cake jokes in there too.
there's so
Oh,
many wedding
yes.
cake
Oh,
jokes.
yeah. There you go.
Oh yeah. Let
Exactly.
them eat cake.
Yes.
Well, that's awesome. Well, hello, everyone. We hope that you had a lovely holiday break. And, of course, if this is your first time joining LoFi History, I'm Libba. We got Glen and Marie here, our historians, ready to answer your questions. Now, for those of you returning, or really for anyone in the chat, we are trying a little different of a tech setup. We have a fancy webcam. But if there's anything that audio-wise that's not going so well, just let me know. We're sort of a new year, trying new things. So Terry is here. Hello, Terry.
Hey, Terry.
Hello.
Says hello from cold Iowa. Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of a strange weather for Christmas here in Georgia. I mean, I think it was like 70 degrees or something.
I ate outside with my family
Yeah.
on the deck.
Yeah, right?
New Year's Day, it was 73 degrees here.
Yes.
But now it has dropped to a frigid for the south, 28 degrees
I
overnight.
want to defrost my car.
Me too.
It's
Yeah.
upsetting.
Well, here's a history joke for you.
Oh no.
So my son wakes up and he says, there's frost on my windshield. And I'm like, no problem. He said, I don't have a scraper. I'm like, no problem. Just use an old cassette case.
An old cassette.
And he
case.
just blinked at me and like, what? It's like, it's a Gen X thing.
Is that the way that that you scraped off the ice?
When you didn't have a scraper, yes, because you had plenty of cassettes in your car, and you would just take your least favorite one and take the cassette out, and then take the case and just scrape it off the windshield.
There you have it.
As everyone knows.
Historically accurate. Oh,
Yes.
thank you, Karen. Karen said that we sound echoey. 1 second, my friends. That might be on
That's
my
because I was talking about the past. The recent past.
Okay, now we can kind of treat it as a tech stream. I think because I think your voices are being picked up on the camera. I was hoping that this webcam would be able to be an easy way
Oh,
for
yes.
me to
Make
have a
things easier?
microphone- Make things easier. Okay, so how about this? Marie, Glenn, why don't you tell the folks at home about your costumes, and I will fix my mic. So, Marie, why don't you start? What are you wearing today?
So it was cold. So I went and I wanted to get all my warm things on. And also I was just watching a thing about cloaks. And then I wanted to wear my cloak. So I did an outfit where I got to wear my cloak. This is it's this nice gray wool.
So what you supposed? Ooh.
Yeah.
What is that? Wool?
Yeah. Nice gray wool. Then I did a nice blue lining on the inside. And then I have this fun little capelet.
I think it's a cape.
A cape.
A cape,
A little
yes.
miniature cape on top of my cape. Yes, a little capelet. I feel like there's also like another more specific name for this.
There probably
And
is.
it's like here, but it hasn't formed in my mind, so I'll just like remember it halfway through the stream.
Right.
And then I'm also wearing my Garibaldi blouse, which is just like a nice white blouse that is from the 1860s. It was named after General Garibaldi during the Italian Civil War. War for Independence.
Which was going on just before and around the same time as the American Civil War.
Exactly, and we did a whole whole stream where we introduced Dr. Tucker, who did a
Yes.
whole book about the influences that Garibaldi and the Italian and their war had on the American Civil War in the South, which is very interesting.
And vice versa.
Yes.
It's like those two burgeoning nationalist independence movements.
Yes. But Garibaldi was also a fashion influence because people liked his like white. Well, actually, he had red puffy shirts.
Yes.
He and his men had red puffy shirts. Ladies also liked the red puffy shirts, but then the white puffy shirts also really caught on. This is where you get basically the first time that a woman is wearing a white shirt, other than with a riding habit.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Yes. So otherwise, we always have bodices that match our skirts. Almost always.
Right.
But this is like the first time that we have a little bit more of an influence of men's fashion within women's fashion. I mean, there's a lot of those, but like for white shirts at least, this is it. And I'm also wearing a Sontag, which I crocheted, which is also a mid-Victorian thing to keep warm. And then I have a nice scarf.
Isn't that just a
And a
fancy
hat.
word for sleeveless vest?
A Sontag?
Yes.
No, because actually it wraps around the front.
Oh.
Yes.
Very.
So it overlaps in the front. It crosses.
Oh,
and it's all
interesting.
it's all one piece, but the front
Right.
it crosses and then ties in the back.
Oh,
So it's kind of
that's
like
kind of cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's like a sleeveless sweater. And I guess you could say it's almost like a vest, but it functions
So
and ties differently.
when you make it flat then in a shape.
yeah,
I
here,
guess.
I'll take it off so
Well, you don't
people
have
can
to. No,
actually
'cause
see
you're
it.
warm, but-
Oh, okay.
Well,
If you watch our whole live stream on
That's right.
Victorian women's fashion, you can see me take off the Sontag.
pretty racy here at the Northeast Georgia History. So
Yes.
take off your Sontag.
You have 5 more layers underneath.
Woo!
Woo!
Check. Can you hear me?
I can, but I'm right here.
Yeah, right. Let's see. Is this working?
Maybe you haven't told us what you're wearing yet.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
so it is cold. Again, I know we have people that watch us around the country and the world that are probably way colder than here.
Probably.
But I'm like you. Every time it gets cold down here, I'll like think of cold history things. And what could
I
be
can
more
wear my
cold than the Soviet Union and its great patriotic war against the forces of fascist Germany? So I thought I would go downstairs and pull out my World War II Soviet gear with my padded jacket. Super simple. You have to remember the Soviets lost not just a lot of men at the beginning of World War II as the Germans swept in to western the Ukraine and those areas. They lost a lot of equipment too. So they're having to make things. And so they just basically have this cotton and they sew channels in it and then they stuff it with whatever rags or wool or things they can find to make this padded garment. Super simple. They make it in basically like 3 different sizes. So they just say here, here, here. This is when they couldn't get greatcoats out. Greatcoats are much warmer, like they're wool.
Yeah.
But if you can't get wool things, then they have these. And actually you can move in it a little better, but it doesn't insulate as well. And then, of course, you have the classic Ushanka.
Ushanka. Oh, that's
Ushanka
fun.
with the red Soviet star with a hammer and sickle in the middle. This is actually an original
Oh, really?
star hammer. This is reproduction, but the buttons and the badge are actual original World War II badges. And what's neat is, of course, this is out here for the enlisted men. This is not real fur. For the officers, it could be like rabbit fur or something. But this
Okay.
is just like a synthetic, which the soldiers called fish fur as a
Fish
as
fur.
a clever joke.
Wait, I don't know if I get the joke.
Because fish don't have fur.
Oh,
But
I
what is
see.
it then?
Oh, it's like just a manufactured. It's a synthetic.
Oh,
It's
so
not
it's
wool.
not real.
It's not real
So
fur.
they called it fish fur.
Okay.
Correct.
Oh, now it's funny.
Yes.
I gotcha.
It's not actual fur, so they called it fish fur.
There we go.
And it's got a cool, it's quilted on the inside and everything. And it keeps you warm. And if it got cold enough, you could of course untie it and have the ears flap down. But then you
Oh,
look a little bit
nice.
too much like a Midwesterner up there from Minnesota.
From Minnesota.
And the
yeah.
Minnesotan accent doesn't go too well with the Soviet communist there, so I decided to
Wow.
keep the ears up.
Glenn, you are as good at your American accents as you are at your foreign accents.
Thank you.
No. Just kidding. All right, let me see if
Oh
our
gosh,
sound.
geez, dear.
Let me see if our sound is good now. Test.
Now, the
1,
way
2,
that
3.
the channels are
All right.
sewn
Sounds like
remind
I'm
me
good.
A lot of when I made a pad that goes under the chainmail on armor.
It's the same.
It's
the same process.
Same idea.
Yeah, it looks like the same that they've been doing since the Middle Ages.
And before.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Because it's, there are a couple of different ways to get thicknesses. You could either actually make a lot of thicknesses and then stitch them together along the channels or these lines,
But that's
which
a
is
lot.
quilting.
Yeah.
Or you just take 2 layers, stitch it so that there's channels, and then stuff things up the channels. And they made both things, but this one is definitely only 2 layers with stuff stuffed into the channels because
Very cool.
it was quicker and easier. Right.
Yeah. Because you could stuff it with whatever.
Right, you can stuff it
versus
with whatever.
Having like batting or wool or a thick fabric that you could then sandwich and quilt.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And there are some. Here we go. I'm going to and then we'll get into questions and things.
Yeah.
In the later medieval period and early Renaissance, you probably know this, cloth armor became a thing. Actual cloth armor. And they would make, and there are records of this, and people have made reproductions of, does look kind of like, actually a lot like this, only it's layers of linen, like 15, 18, 20 layers of linen, which I
Wow.
can't imagine how long it took
Yeah.
them and their gnarled, super medieval fingers to sew through that.
I'm just thinking about it now and it makes my fingers hurt.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, but they would make these garments, and the thicknesses were not the same when they're in the joints and
No,
armpit, but like in the body and the arms.
Otherwise, you just look like this.
Yeah, you'd be like
Michelin Man.
what's his
Yes.
name from Christmas Story, right?
Yeah.
I can't put my arms down. But they've done tests on modern reproductions, and they are amazingly effective with all those layers of linen squished together.
Oh, very cool.
They can be proof against sword cuts and proof against arrows. It's pretty
Natural
interesting.
fibers.
And they're much cheaper than actual in the time period. They're much cheaper than metal, mail or plate armor, which is the opposite now. I could order a full metal breastplate now for a couple of $100, but to
Wow.
pay someone to make a real piece of cloth armor, it's thousands.
Wow.
Well, because then you have to have 15 layers of linen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then
That
the
ain't
labor.
cheap either.
Yeah.
Right?
And especially if you wanted to hand do that, that's going to take
Yeah,
a
it's-
long time.
Now,
Long
I
time.
mean, how long would it have someone who wants to make chainmail today, would
Oh
it
my
take
gosh.
basically the same amount of time to like link everything
So-
together?
Okay.
And by the way, while he goes on this tangent, get your questions in the chat.
Yeah.
Any history question
All
that
right.
you like if you're joining
So
us.
chainmail, the linked armor, right, of the little tiny rings.
Yes.
You have to remember that was not produced by village blacksmiths. That was an industry that was centered in certain cities of Europe, and there would be whole businesses that worked together to make it, because it's not just linking the wire. That's the last step.
Yeah.
You have to go get the iron, you have to smelt the iron, you have to take the iron, hammer it out thin, and then pull it over and over and over through increasingly smaller diameter holes to make the wire. Then you have to spiral it, then you have to cut it, and then you have to overlap them, and then you have to put little holes in each one and put little rivets in each one as you put 4 links into a central one. All that to say, for the larger industries in those towns, they could crank these things out at a relatively prodigious rate if you had the money to pay for them. And as time goes on, earlier on, say in the 1000s, and the mechanics and the process is not as formalized and, I'm going to put this in quotes, industrialized
Right.
as it had been in ancient Rome or as it became later. So it's more expensive, it takes longer. To get back to Libba's actual basic question of how long it takes, back in the day before you could buy a lot of this on the reenactors market, nerd friends like me and other folks I knew would sit around and put it together by hand in our living room watching TV shows or something like that. And that is just butted rings. It's not actually overlapped and riveted together. We're just pushing the links together, right? We're not fastening them in any way. And it would take weeks of doing that to make a shirt, right? And we're starting out with a wire already made, and we're not linking the links together the way they would have done. So it's incredibly labor intensive.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And would that be something like, okay, I make this thing. This the selling of this one item will sustain me for like how much money?
Well, again, it's industries, right? So it's businesses. So the guys doing much of the manual labor are not going to be the ones owning the business.
Right.
Necessarily.
Okay, that makes sense. Right.
Necessarily.
Right.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
if one guy was able to do all the steps necessary, a shirt would probably take him 6 months.
Wow.
Back in the day with authentic materials and things like that, at least.
Wow.
Now, as to the value of that, I mean, what does a skilled tradesman make today in 6 months?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Just think about that. Yeah.
$20,000-$30,000.
Right. Yeah.
More.
Yeah.
So yeah, the equivalent thereof.
Nice. Well, it looks like we've got our first question from, we also have some more friends here. We got Diane. Hello, Diane.
Hello.
We also have Alma and Karen. Thank you, Karen, for that little tech feedback. Thank you. And other Karen. Hello, Karen on Facebook. And we also have Bernice and Josh is here.
Hey, Josh.
You know what? I got to meet Josh at our last family day, which was so exciting. Felt like I was meeting a celebrity.
Yeah, he kind of is.
Yeah.
He kind of is.
So that was awesome. But our first question, of course, it comes from Alma and more specifically Gabby. And Gabby's question of the day is from the musical Jagged Little Pill. And I actually I'm not familiar with this one. She wants to know, but apparently it has something to do with flannel because she wants to know the history of flannel. So maybe we can, I'll look up a little bit about Jagged Little Pill just
That
to
was
get
an
what the
album
context.
That's okay. Maybe
Yeah, that's why
what
it
I
sounded
was thinking
familiar
of.
too. Is it based on?
Wasn't it Alanis Morissette?
It is Alanis Morissette. Okay, flannel, 90s grunge kind of
Yeah.
indie. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I don't know much about Jagged Little Pill, but I'm sure it uses a lot of. It's inspired by the Alanis Morissette album.
Okay.
Okay, cool. But now back to flannel. Super popular today. Super popular since I can remember. But when did flannel to begin, and what exactly is flannel?
Now, are we thinking like of the material flannel? Are we thinking like flannel shirts, which are generally done in a plaid or tartan design?
Let's start
And
with
is often cotton rather than wool nowadays.
Right.
Yes.
Let's start with old, like actual authentic flannel. Like, what do we know about flannel as a material?
Flannel's really more the finish of the fabric than a.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't it? As when we're talking
think-
olden times.
Yeah, I think so.
It's
I'm
kind of
trying to like
fuzzy,
where we're
soft.
calling it back.
I want to say
Let's see.
it's almost always flannel as we think of it is
Yeah.
almost it's not wool because they had wool. It's a way to make
it's-
cotton into something that's sort of like wool
Yeah.
because you've got thin. I mean, show them your Garibaldi
Yes.
shirt. That's like
Oh, here we go. So
Yeah.
here we have cotton and wool right here.
Yeah,
right.
right.
So
There we go.
this is shirt weight cotton. It's not super warming. You know, it's kind of thin. It's not see-through thin, but it's thin. It's not really meant for warmth. But they were trying, since cotton was so cheap, they were trying to find ways to turn it into something that could be more like this, right? That could have a little fluff to it and a little softness and a little bulk so that it could
Warmth.
insulate and create warmth. So
Because like a flannel petticoat, because you wouldn't use flannel necessarily as an outward garment.
Okay.
That's when you're going to have your nice cottons, your nice wools, are what you're going to use on the outside. So flannel could be like a lining. I know flannel petticoats were definitely a thing. And then it's really not until we get to the grunge phase where we're like, hey, you know what? This thing that we don't normally let people see because it's not that nice of a fabric, let's put it out there.
well, and then
Right?
there's flannel the fabric,
Yes.
and then there's
What people think
there's
of a
plaid shirts,
Right. It's
Right.
different. Right.
which people call flannel shirts because that's usually the kind of material that they were made from. I had a lot of flannel shirts back in the day. They're very outdoorsy and mountainy and lumberjacky.
Yes,
Yeah.
they
Which I
are
think is why the
definitely
grunge people picked up on 'em.
associated with the lumberjack look, for sure.
But I did learn,
Which is kind of again a rugged human like a
Right, yes, rugged human fashion.
yes.
But just taking a look at good old Wikipedia, it looks like that the origin of the word flannel is uncertain, but there is some evidence to suggest that there's a fabric in Welsh culture. Where's David?
Yes.
Where's David when
He
you
probably
us
could have
about-
told us that.
yeah, right. David could probably tell us more. But so it's also been called, or something similar to it, has been called Welsh cotton. So a coarse woolen material. But there's a French term, flanelle. Flanelle was used in the late 17th century, so 1600s. And German, we need Fried here
See?
too. Germany also has flannel, just with 2 L's at the end, that was used in the early 18th century. So it's been around, and I guess that's where it sort of has, it can kind of encompass a fair amount of this coarse, heavier kind of wool. But now we just call it flannel, colloquially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I used. Don't tell some reenactors this, but I actually used flannel as basically a substitute for wool in one of my dresses.
Ooh.
I know, right? But I don't think anyone can really tell, for the most part. I mean, it moves
Right.
differently,
Right.
but also it's flannel is supposed to look like wool, and it depends on what kind of wool you get.
Because it's got that nap to it.
Exactly.
Right.
So I guess it depends on what type of wool or what finish of wool you're really going for, but it is supposed. Flannel is always more fuzzy though.
Mm-hmm.
It's never, because wool can be fuzzy like this. I have also seen nice polished wools that almost have the same finish as this. It has a different feel to it, but if you were looking at it, and if you weren't looking closely at it, because if you look at it closely, you can see it has a different type of grain almost.
Yeah.
Like a different, not more bulk, but it has a bit of more sturdiness to it than cottons do. But it can get pretty thin.
Yeah.
And it can get to a point where you're like, oh my gosh, that's wool, really? It all depends on about how it's manufactured, and even with flannel, it's how this thing is manufactured.
Well, I don't know if they still do, but historically speaking, with wool and linen being the primary fabrics for clothing, they, like you said, they made them they made wool so thin you could see light when you held it up.
Wow.
Or they make it 3 times thicker than this stuff.
Right, yeah.
Right? However, it's just whatever they needed to make it into, that's where they started.
Nice. That's a cool question, Gabby. Thank you for asking that.
Bringing up grunge, you know what we should do for one lo-fi?
What?
We should all 3 dress the way we dressed in high school.
Oh my gosh.
That would be fun.
High school. Well, I'll be wearing my softball sweatshirt and jeans. That's basically what I wore
that's fun.
every
That
single
would be
day.
fun.
I had a school uniform, so I can definitely tell you.
Oh yeah.
Now, if it was
Exactly what I
middle
dressed like.
school,
Well-
now that would be entertaining because I would need to have a wig, crimp my hair, be like Avril Lavigne eyeliner. That was my horrible phase. So high school, I was just a normie, but middle school, I was
it doesn't
really
have to be
trying.
in high school. Let's say your high school years, your teen years.
Yeah, teen
Your
years.
late
yeah.
teen years.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah.
we need.
Okay, yeah, I'll get a wig. I'll get
We'll work on that.
Yes, that
I'll
would
go
be
to
fun.
Claire's. You get some cheap jewelry.
No, surely they make some sort of filter you could use and just pick
Oh
your
my
quick
gosh,
hair.
right? Yes, there you go. Yes. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Alma and Gabby. We love your musical inspired questions. And of course, everyone else, if you have any questions for us, anything you're curious about, go ahead. I see that Josh has a question for us, of course. And of course, with Josh's questions, we always like to ask, what if? So, Josh's what if today is, what if the Hindenburg had safer gas, helium, which would cause it not to catch fire, and it safely landed in New Jersey? Would Zeppelins or other air blimps continue to be the airlines of today, or would another Hindenburg cause the Zeppelin or air blimp to decline in popularity? This is a great question because, I mean, I think when I've seen a lot of, I guess what you'd call what people in the 50s, 40s, 30s, whatever, thought the future would be like,
Right.
or even artists today doing what's called retro futurism, sort of that same style. like I see blimps and
It was lighter
Yeah.
than aircraft, right?
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
lighter than aircraft and heavier than aircraft.
Yeah. So
And-
I would love to know, like, let's just start out with these kinds of aircraft. Was this? I don't even know. Was this before the airplane? I mean, I don't even know. I don't know the first thing.
It was, well,
the blimp
so,
or
so think
anything.
of it this way. So
Time.
hot air balloons,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Those
Were
happened.
the first craft that broke the Earth's gravity, broke the bonds of Mother Earth, and allowed mankind to rise into the sky. Lighter than aircraft because the gases within them, even though for the earliest balloons it was just hot air, right? But that
Right.
meant that it could, the hot air was lighter than the air outside it, so it would float up. That was the first way that people went into the skies. The big deal about the Wright brothers isn't that they went into the sky
Right.
first. It's that they used a powered, heavier than aircraft
Okay.
to propel themselves through the air.
Right.
And because of the technologies required, lighter than aircraft took the lead early on. Remember, they used balloons in the American Civil War a
They
lot.
Right.
There's actually a
Yeah.
whole fictional story I read based off of a possible actual story about like ladies collecting silk dresses to make a hot air balloon.
Yes.
That they would then use for basically reconnaissance.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Right. So,
But balloons are not a feature that everyone talks about during the American Civil War. It's very overlooked.
it is.
The hot air balloons.
I got a cool picture of some hot air balloon designs.
Yes.
So these are from, let's see what year this is from. Come on, Wikipedia, tell me 1818. So,
Oh, wow, that's very early.
Yeah, technical illustrations
Right.
showing balloon designs. Who knows?
Some of that looks like it would work.
I can't
I
remember
know,
their
right?
names. The blah 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 brothers in France at the time when Franklin and Adams and Jefferson were over there. Montgolfier, I think, was it Montgolfier?
Let's see.
They were the ones. They were the first ones to do this, and so that was what the 1760s,
Yes, the
70s.
1783, the
1783.
Montgolfier brothers. Yeah.
So anyway, that it doesn't require engines, right? They can do it through gas, and so the advantage, even after they began to develop gasoline-powered engines and some basic heavier than aircraft, the great thing with blimps, zeppelins, and things is once you fill them with gas, you didn't need to work to maintain their altitude. They were just there.
Right, yeah.
And if you wanted to move them around, that's when you had propellers go and gigantic little air rudders and things like that to kind of guide them.
Okay.
And they could carry a lot more weight, and at the time, of course, they were much more reliable. That's why
They
they
could
started.
carry more people.
They could carry more people. They could carry more weight. During the Great War, the Germans had Zeppelins that bombed London. It was the very first effort at strategic bombing, even though it wasn't very strategic and the bombs were very small. The numbers of Zeppelins weren't very big, but nevertheless, there you are. And the Hindenburg was in 1936.
I mean,
It's close. It's right
Yeah.
around there.
I just got a picture, and you'll probably get to this. And like I said, I know nothing about this, but why are there swastikas on it?
Because this was in the 30s. This is a German aircraft, right? The Hindenburg.
Oh, yeah.
And
So the
so-
swastika wasn't like,
It's the national symbol at
Yeah.
this point. So that's
and not necessarily seen as like, evil.
not
yet.
at this point. It's just
Yeah.
wow, that's those crazy Germans.
You're right.
Also,
Right.
Madison Square Garden had a whole Nazi rally. Like,
Oh, the German American boon was huge.
yeah.
But that's a story for another
yeah,
day.
right.
There was even a group here in Atlanta.
Oh, wow.
really?
Yes. We'll
We'll talk
Interesting.
about that.
Anyway, so yeah, that's the thing. So they're huge, so they require a huge amount of maintenance. They cannot move very fast.
They're not
Right.
fast.
And as Josh has obviously pointed the problem out, is they used hydrogen, which was incredibly explosive. So basically, what happened? Yes, there
Yeah,
you go. And
Speaking
then,
of explosive.
and this was being described over the radio, and we've probably most of you have heard this. If not, I'm sure it's on YouTube. The audio of the radio people saying, "Oh, this wonderful thing's coming to land." Excuse me. An electric charge goes through, sets the first hydrogen bladder on fire. It spreads to the other one. It burns incredibly quickly. It says the humanity, oh the humanity. because there were people on board, right? There were
right, yeah, of
tens,
course.
maybe not quite 100.
Yeah.
About 100.
This was a passenger airliner.
Yeah.
Bringing people. This is not a military craft. And so the video that exists, if you look close, you can see people jumping out of this thing
that's
trying
horrible.
to live. It is.
Oh,
It's
wow.
horrible.
Yeah.
And so I think, to get to Josh's question,
Right.
even if they could have been made remarkably non-flammable, I think the technological advances of heavier-than aircraft by the 1930s had surpassed the desire for lighter-than aircraft, certainly as military craft, but perhaps even as passenger or cargo aircraft, because you just can't get them to move fast, right?
But people did like that because it gave you a very smooth ride.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
It's a slow boat to China kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Right.
You know, you could cross the Atlantic in them, but it would take days and days, and you would have to go in a circuitous route so you didn't get caught into the air streams and things like that. Whereas a B-17 can just go right across.
Yeah. That's an excellent question. And I mean, that seems like just aircraft in general seems like a topic we haven't touched on all that much. So that could be, I'm gonna put it in our program ideas.
Yes. There is, just as a side note, then we can move on. There is, and we have a book. We've had a forum here on at the Northeast Georgia History Center years ago. I can't remember his name, but there was a local fellow who supposedly carried out a powered flight a few months before the Wright brothers.
Oh, really?
However, when testing his aircraft for the second time, he crashed and died.
Oh, no.
And there was no real documentation. And
Oh,
there's
my
a lot
goodness.
of controversy as to whether
Yeah.
he actually did that first one that he said before he crashed and died, because he had to test it by basically taking it and then jumping it off a cliff.
So kind of more like a hang glider
In a way.
situation.
A hang glider with kind of an engine on it.
Yeah.
But it is interesting. I mean, it's
It's
interesting.
very interesting.
It's there are patent drawings and everything from this particular aircraft, but much as I love Northeast Georgia, I don't think it's true. So, I mean, he existed. The airplane existed.
Yes. Just possibly
I don't think
not
he was the first.
usurping
guy
the
to-
Wright brothers
Right.
in that honor.
Right.
Now, Diane brings up Ben Epps of Athens, Georgia. Are y'all fairly familiar enough with him to?
I'm not. I know that there is an Epps Aviation, and I know that the Atlanta History Center has in its collection parts and pieces of the first Epps flyer.
Wow. Yeah.
But that's really all I know.
I am slightly more well acquainted with Epps because I went to UGA
Athens,
and
yes.
therefore am an Athenian. And there's a statue of him in downtown Athens across from where his shop would have been. And I think he had a bicycle shop.
He did. Yeah. I'm reading.
Yeah.
that
Always
right
the
now.
bicycle guys.
Yeah.
Yes, he had a bicycle shop. And it's very reminiscent of Wright brothers,
Yeah.
right? So he had a bicycle shop in downtown Athens, Georgia. Ended up becoming interested in aviation. There is an airfield down by Athens where I think that he kind of dabbled,
Yeah.
if you will, with planes and such. And I also met a tragic end with aircraft.
He died from a critical injury in a crash in Athens in 1935. 1937. Yeah.
But he was like one of the early aviators in the area, which was like everyone like, ooh, exciting, fun, but then also dangerous.
I have a book on him and his flyers in my home library.
Oh,
but
very cool.
I can't quote it to you. Sorry.
I'll try to find a picture to share. Oh yeah, here we go. So I think this is right outside of Washington Street. I don't know if Washington Street still exists in Athens. I mean, I'm sure.
I think some form of it
Yeah,
does.
some form
the
of it
downtown
does.
is full of very interesting one-ways.
Yeah. Yes. Right.
You sometimes have to if you missed your turn, you have to go all the way around the city and
I
come
swear
back.
it's worse than downtown Atlanta.
Yeah.
I mean, it really
Athens,
is.
I don't know. Athens, at least all of our streets line up, kind of.
Yeah, kind of.
Can't say that, but yeah,
There's
this
some
is
5 points that are concerning, but yes.
So I think this is with what you would call a monoplane. Yeah.
Yes.
So pretty cool.
And so the building that says the
company or
it should
something?
say company, but
Yeah.
it's like PANY there, is still there in
Oh, how
Athens.
cool.
I'm pretty sure, and that is where his bicycle shop was.
Oh,
and
neat.
it's very close to. I mean, the building itself, I'm pretty sure is still there because I remember like the arch windows, which are really cool.
Oh, yeah.
Building behind it is super cool, but that does not look like it's there anymore.
Yeah.
It's very upsettingly because I
Yeah.
think that's such a cool building. But then right across the street, so basically he's looking at his old workshop is where the Ep statue is, and
Okay.
he's there holding one of his
Aw,
propellers.
That's really cool. Well,
Yeah.
another person we should check out
Yeah.
as part of our History of Aircraft eventual program. So,
I mean, Delta Airlines. I mean,
Right.
that's a whole Georgia
yeah.
thing.
oh yeah, definitely.
For sure.
Absolutely.
We have Atlanta is known for its airport.
We just had
Yes.
it. We just had a forum
We
on that
did,
too.
yeah.
That's
on the history
right.
of Delta Airlines.
Yeah.
Gosh, he was a Delta pilot for 40 something years.
Wow.
Yeah, 40 something.
Yeah,
I don't
one of
know.
our board members who just
Yeah.
rolled off the board
Yeah.
this past year.
So our next question, this is a great one from Laura. Laura wants to know, how realistic are shows like Bridgerton and Downton Abbey? Now, I
Okay.
don't think, I know, Marie, I know this is on you, but I don't think we can compare Bridgerton to reality, whereas Downton Abbey,
That's the thing.
Yeah.
We can't start out with that being our premise.
they have different, like, contracts with the audience, or
Yes.
suspension of
Ooh.
disbelief, I
I
would
like
say.
that. Yes, that's
Yes.
a good way to put it.
Yeah, so
I
go
lost
for
my
it,
cap on
Marie.
that. Okay. So Bridgerton
Yeah.
is a historically inspired show. It does not exist within any form of historical reality.
Yeah.
It has pretend.
It's almost satirical in a way when it comes to its
Yes.
approach to history. Yeah.
Yes. So it uses history
Yeah.
as a form of informing this interesting society, which is very fun. I think it's fun. Like, I'm not here to like bash on Bridgerton. I think it's a very fun show. But I don't think you can call it historical fiction. I would call that almost a form of historical fantasy.
Right. I think so. I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where Downton Abbey is historical fiction.
It's 100% real. I believe it.
But also, they use so many storylines that are real. Like Julian Fellows, the writer of Downton
Right.
Abbey,
He ties it into all the real things.
he uses so much research, and even the house, because I love
Yeah.
how in Downton Abbey, like the house is a character, in a way. Very much, which I'm so interested to see about the new movie, because they go to a different house, and I'm like, how can you call
Oh.
it Downton Abbey if they're not at Downton Abbey? But
Huh.
I'm still going to go watch
That sounds
it.
like a contract issue with a Carver family.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, excuse me, Carnarvon. Not
yeah.
Carver,
Yeah.
Carnarvon.
So because he chose the house in a very specific way. I mean, not like this is the one that we must have, but like wanted to have a house that had some history to it, to where they didn't have to like build the set,
Right.
that it was there, because you can't recreate 500 years of British aristocracy heirlooms
Right. Yeah.
in a cheap fashion. But also used the history of the house. Like, the house was a World War I recovery center. Like, the house, and the lady of the house, just like Cora, was basically like the superintendent of that hospital and helped with administration. So basically, like, the characters serve as archetypes for actual people.
Right. Yeah.
Kind of like when we do like third person living history almost.
Right,
Like, we
right.
serve as a representative of what people would have actually experienced. Of course, there's still a lot of like historical fiction, but like Downton Abbey with costumes, set, storyline does a very good job of not veering too far off of what would have actually happened. Of course, like, we are watching fictional people and are interested in the fictional people's lives, which don't exist. But they could have. I
Right.
think, and that's the magic of Downton Abbey, is like, well, it could have.
Right.
Almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bridgerton takes place in a world that is new and has been written for that world.
Yes.
Downton Abbey takes place, in effect, in our world, in a historical reality.
Yeah.
I mean, that,
Right.
and it follows those rules and that time frame and the material culture and all the things.
Because, I mean, there are still, like, of course, historical inaccuracies that, or things where you bend the rules, or you use well, it could have happened, but it might not have been typical, because we're also talking about the British aristocracy. So, like, they get to do stuff that normal people don't.
Right.
In some ways. But then also you still have like the upstairs and downstairs staff, so you have the juxtaposition of that and like looking at their lives. Oh, look at them!
Yeah.
There they are.
I don't know what season this is.
That's
it's like
from
the 20s.
Oh,
the movie.
Dowager
Okay.
Countess. My favorite
Violet.
character.
Now, as we look at these characters, are there any stories that you feel were particularly interesting when it comes to representing like the role or the class or the status of someone of this time?
All of them?
I guess I was curious, like, did you feel like from my perspective, there's probably things that I wouldn't know about the life of like a servant or a valet or valet, however you say it, you know.
So I will say this, the relationship between the Earl and Bates.
Oh yeah.
Right,
That's
is-
Yeah.
really fascinating.
It is fascinating because it is something that here in the States, in our freedom-based democracy, we don't get, and we tend to ridicule when it happens. But that concept of because their character setup is that they met when they were both fighting in the Boer War.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And so the Earl was an officer and Bates was his Batman.
Okay.
Batman, which is kind of like his servant's not really the right word. Sort of his go-to guy. He took care of all his stuff. He served right next to him. He carried his messages. He cooked his meals or made sure he got the meals.
Support staff.
He was the support guy. So they were not socially equitable from a class rank situation. But no two men in the British military system were ever closer than the officer and their Batman.
Gotcha.
Ever.
That's
right?
an interesting.
And it was not seen by either one of those people as, well, I'm obviously better than you, and yes, you are better than me. They realized there was a class distinction, and yet they still had this bond that took that into account, but was very, very intimate. I mean, it was platonically intimate. And so to see that carried over into the civilian world, I think they did a really good job of this sense of loyalty, this sense of shared, we've seen things that neither one of us can talk to anyone else about, so
right.
we're buddies.
Yeah.
Even though there's this still very strict class distinction between us, there's nothing we wouldn't do for each other.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think, like I said, the idea of, and Mr. Carson talking about how proud he is to serve this family. Again, that is so not American.
Right.
Generally
yeah.
speaking, we cannot appreciate what it means to be of service, to be a servant to someone else, and take pride in that. It is not in our culture.
There's a movie I actually watched somewhat within the last year about a British valet who comes to America, and his former owner like basically loses the valet in a gambling thing, and you do see that like he's insistent on like all these formalities and everything, but then it starts to crack a little bit because then his new master, whatever you call it, it insists on this American way of like, no, we're equals, and even starts introducing him around as a colonel
Right,
from
yeah.
England. I can't remember. It's a really funny
Interesting.
movie from the 1930s. I'll try to find
But
it.
honestly, probably that a chunk of that may have to do with America's history of slavery, because pre-1865, many of that follow you around, be your servant, right hand kind of guy was literally master and slave. It's not that way in England. It's a different situation. There's not ownership, right? There's still two free people. And it's very complex. But even within a slave system, when you start reading about, for example, Billy Lee and George Washington, they both very distinctly knew that one was a member of the American upper class and one was his slave. And yet, there's something there, right? It is not just purely master, slave, owner, enslaved person. There is a relationship there. But again, American history tends to taint that, whereas in British society, that has... It's a different tone.
Well,
and I
they've had
love the
so
way the
much
show
other-
does that in my 5-minute explanation.
Yes.
I Oh, sorry. I did find it was Ruggles of Red Gap, and I think this picture shows what the movie is all about.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
So there's Ruggles in the middle, and he just doesn't know what to do because this is just not how he's sitting at a table with the person he's supposed to serve and everything. It's a really fun movie if you have a chance. It's from 1935, which is cool too.
Ruggles of Red Gap.
Ruggles of
I'll have
Red
to check
Gap.
that
Yeah.
out.
That is very fun.
Marie, you wanted to share something.
Yes,
too.
I love the storylines of the three daughters and how distinctly different they all are, because I think they really highlight. So there we see Mary on the end with her nice little bob and blue dress, and then there's Edith standing between the Dowager Countess and Isabel. And sadly, Sybil's not there because
Sybil.
she died during season 3.
That's what comes of wearing trousers.
You die in childbirth.
Oh, I see.
I'm being sarcastic, but I love Sybil.
Yeah, Sybil. I love Sybil, but so, I mean, she was one of the best ones, honestly.
Yeah.
Loved her. So the character Sybil, she becomes a nurse during World War I. She wants kind of out of this class society that she's in, but realizes like what her place is, but wants more than being mistress of the house, because she's the third daughter. She's not going to have that unless she marries into it, and she's not really interested in that. So she's like, well, that's like my family does that thing, but like that doesn't have to be me. So she is very interested in helping people, and ends up marrying the valet, the chauffeur.
Not only does she marry the lower class, she marries an Irishman.
Yes. And I think that is also an interesting thing that
Yeah.
I did not realize when I started watching the show, is
What an issue that was.
what an issue that was.
Yes.
I did not realize, because I had not gotten to that point in my history courses,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, oh.
So this is just like the Irish are treated very
Oh, the Irish are
lower
just the scum of the earth.
Okay,
Yes.
I see.
Like,
And that
let them
carried
die
over
during
into
the potato
America in
famine.
the early
Well,
part
it
of the
depends on who
20th
you talk
century.
to.
I see.
Yeah.
In what area?
Yeah, I see.
There was some forms of Irish hatred
I
in
gotcha.
some places.
That'd be
Yes.
interesting too.
Oh, yes.
Why
that's-
we hate on the Irish?
Well, because they all moved here and they were poor and took our jobs.
Oh, I mean,
that's like
that
the
classic
quote-unquote.
tale.
Oh.
Yeah.
It was
Yep.
the quote
My
unquote.
people
Yeah.
have been having trouble with immigrants ever since we came to this country.
That's good. That's good.
Yes.
All right, we got 10 minutes left.
Okay.
We got some
All right.
questions,
So anyway, Downton Abbey,
Yes.
the three daughters, storylines, women.
yes.
Yes.
Demonstrates the different paths that women could take as they were opening up in the 1920s, and I thought that is incredibly interesting.
Yeah.
If
yeah.
they're rich.
If they're rich.
If they're rich, yeah.
But also for like Anna and like Daisy
Well, yeah.
and the lower
They've
class.
got-
Yeah.
It's an interesting parallel, yes.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
they also move on and
Oh,
do their
the
own things, and
Mr.
some
and
become
Mrs. Bates.
secretaries, and
Yeah.
the Bates are fantastic.
Debates, yeah.
Yeah.
So
And there's the Dowager Countess
Oh.
hovering over it all. Gosh, she's so good.
So good.
okay, is Downton Abbey like done as a series?
No.
Okay, so we have
I
plenty
mean,
of
yes,
different-
but also
there's-
no.
I think there's one movie.
Yeah.
I think they've got one more movie in them. To be
Okay,
honest.
so we
Because
definitely
their
need to do a
movies are such
Downton.
success.
Downton
in March,
Abbey.
because it's coming out in March.
Okay, we need to think about that. Downton Abbey history context. All right.
Basically,
Okay.
Glen and Marie just sit here, and we start at
And do
season
exactly
1,
what you're doing.
and we do a
Season
play-by-play.
1, fade in. 1912.
You're going to
the Titanic.
reenact every single movie.
And then he says, and then she says.
And then and then they go to the other room, and then they sit there, and yeah.
And secrets. Okay, we're moving on. Thank you. I think that was Laura. Yes. Thank you, Laura, for that question. That's excellent. And of course, we talked about Bridgerton, and Karen also brought I guess this is sort of the precursor to Downton Abbey. Upstairs, downstairs. Is that?
Yeah.
That was that was late 60s, early 70s
Okay.
BBC series.
Drama still?
Yes.
Oh
Okay,
yeah, and
cool.
it's very BBC, but
Yeah.
it is really good because it does the same thing.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
I think Downton Abbey is so successful because it captures that upstairs downstairs aspect, but also kind of throws in a little bit more
character development.
Exactly. Yeah. More slice of life. What are these people actually doing rather than just focusing on like them being upstairs and downstairs.
Oh, I see.
It takes that into a part of being the characters' lives, and it's more character driven.
Cool.
Upstairs, downstairs. Every episode was class difference,
Mm-hmm.
and that it just hammered on that for however many seasons it went on.
And
It's good. Yeah. It was good, but it's like I said, it's very BBC.
Yeah. All right, I think this might be our last question, but and Richard is here. Hello, Richard.
Hey!
Good to see you. Oh, and Richard also said, speaking of Downton Abbey, like in Europe, service was a career, while in America, you went into service until you could get a better job. That's a great point. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
'cause America, we always have this idea of mobility,
Right.
which doesn't exist other places.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the time, because America, it's always, well, we can move upward. Like my parents did this, but that doesn't mean I have to do that. Like I'm going to do something better.
Well, and there's this idea of here's the problem with the mobility. This is me getting philosophical.
Oh, all right.
Mobility means you move from one thing to a better thing, which means the thing you're moving from is somehow less.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why I'm not going to get into this. That's why people think becoming a plumber is somehow less than becoming a journalist or a historian or something like that, right? Because, they work with their hands, they're dirty. It's like, that is a problem I think we have here.
Right?
I really do think that's part of the problem. Mobility is good, but it begins to give that sense of, well, I have to get out of this bad thing into something better.
Right. Everybody's got to be a CEO, doctor.
Something.
Yeah, something pilot, lawyer.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that is something that is very ingrained in the American psyche.
Oh, yeah.
It is, for better and worse.
Yeah. That's interesting, too. Type. Okay. All right, so this is an interesting one. I don't know if y'all will know anything about this, but Jack wants to know about the history of aquariums. And that's kind of, it's pretty Georgia related. I think our aquarium is the largest in the country for sure.
It was when they built it. Yeah,
Yes.
I don't know anymore.
I don't know.
I think it was in the world when they built it too.
Yeah.
I don't know if it still is.
Yeah, but the Georgia
I know it's
Aquarium
huge.
Costs a lot of money to go look at fish.
But it's
Unless
so
it's your
fun.
birthday.
Oh, you get it
If
for
you're
free?
a Georgia citizen and it's your birthday, you can go to the Georgia Aquarium for free. I have done it.
Ah, nice.
fact.
Nice.
The people with you have to pay.
It wasn't free.
Huh?
You didn't go free.
I was.
You had to pay for parking, which you don't have to do at the Northeast
that's
Georgia
true.
History Center.
That's right, but we don't have a tiger shark, so you might be disappointed.
Or we might. You'll have to come in and find out.
Yeah, next special exhibit.
We might be hiding it downstairs.
So we're talking like actual
Like-
giant attraction aquariums, not like sitting on my desk.
Let me.
Like I have a pet
tank.
fish.
You know, it's not specific. It could be. I actually, just looked it up. Just history of aquariums,
Right.
and of course. It looks like in 1369 in China, the emperor did have a porcelain company who produced a large porcelain multiple tubs for maintaining goldfish. And so that may have started a trend, but I don't know. I mean, what do we know about, hey, it kind of brings up to mind just like, I would imagine wealthy people, they like lavish things, they like pretty exotic things. So, fish are pretty and exotic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it kind of, that's what, at least according to Wikipedia, it starts with 1300s China. And there's even a cool picture I'll share. This is great. It's a cat dipping its hand into a porcelain goldfish bowl. So let me share.
If I had to guess, I would say the aquariums that we think of today are probably a 20th century phenomenon.
I think they're very new because I'm trying to think back.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, that's funny. This picture's from 1775, but you kind of get the idea of this porcelain, beautiful bowl.
Oh yeah.
Because I was just thinking about how would you keep a fish alive?
Well, see, that's
back
the
there?
trick.
And you couldn't almost, unless, if they were in a pond. So like if you were to keep fish in a pond,
Right, that's a little different.
I think you could do that historically speaking,
Ooh,
but that wouldn't be like an aquarium.
Now, here's something interesting. So this is an aquarium in the 1850s from, let's see, it's in the section of the books of the aquariums and water cabinets. Oh, water cabinets. That's a cool, I never knew they were called that, but apparently in let's see, I'm reading the Wikipedia. This is...
That sounds very Victorian.
It sounds so
it's a very Victorian thing to
Yeah.
do, right? Look, we're
Right.
doing science and biology, and here's some samples.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so it
Look
seems...
at the fish.
This kind of aquarium where it's just like, yes, look at these samples, was pioneered by a French marine biologist. I cannot pronounce their name. Jean Villepreux Power. Okay, maybe I can. I did take French. In 1836, soon after his invention of the Wardian case, someone else proposed that he use it for tropical animals. So he did. So yeah, he kept aquatic plants and fish. I don't know how you keep them alive. I mean, I don't know. They need
Probably lots of experience. I mean, literally,
Yeah,
lots of
lots of
experimentation,
experimenting.
right?
Yeah.
So I feel like you would have to be very wealthy to be able to have a
water
giant
cabinet.
glass case that is also a water cabinet.
Now, when it comes
and then
to
feed
like
it weird things.
when it comes to like, I want to go see. I'm a tourist. I want to go see an aquarium. There was one, and here's a illustration of one. So let's see. This is this is French again. The Jardin Zoologique. So the Garden of Zoology at the Bois du Boulogne included an aquarium that housed both fresh and saltwater animals in 1860s Paris. So that's pretty
Interesting.
neat too.
So
Yeah,
it's
that's
kind
neat.
of like the reptile house at a zoo.
Right.
And then aquariums kind of grew to be their own thing
Yeah.
as we learn more about the ocean.
That is
Oh, that is so
fascinating.
cool. Okay, y'all, we got to do a program about aquariums so that we can go to the Georgia Aquarium
Yes.
and interview them. That would be so cool.
Y'all go to the Georgia Aquarium. I will go to the Bois de Boulogne.
Yeah. The Bois de Bleu. Yes, exactly. Well, that's perfect timing. Jack, thank you so much for that question. That was an excellent question and great idea. I am going to type history of aquariums. Did I spell it right? Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for LoFi History today. As always, we appreciate it. And we'll be back next. This is a once-a-month program, but you can catch us on our members-only live streams if you become a member of the Northeast Georgia History Center. And that's only $5 a month or $45 a year. Great bargain. And we have basically mini documentaries every Friday. The next one, Marie, you're going to be doing a mini doc about the Little White House in Warm Springs, Georgia. Why don't you give us a...
FDR's and his relationship to Gainesville and, well, Georgia and also Gainesville, because we actually have a square here named for Roosevelt because he came here.
Don't spoil it. Make them tune in.
He came here. Find out why.
So if you go to our website, you'll see the membership link, but I'll also put that in the chat, negahc.org/member.
And that
again,
gives you access to all of the things we've done for forever.
Yes, you.
Yeah.
I mean, we've done well
Hundreds.
over. Not
I'm
hundreds
just
yet.
thinking like,
Oh, you mean for our members programs?
Oh,
we've done.
yes. If you're a member, that gives you access to all the things we've done.
Yeah. Let me see how many members programs we actually have done. 79.
79.
Wow.
Tens.
Tens.
almost 100.
Yeah. So thank you all. Thanks. Karen says you are all rock stars. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Y'all are the rock stars too. Believe us. All right, y'all. We'll see you soon in the chat, and Happy New Year. All right. Take care. Bye.